Warning, this video was meant to come out a lot sooner, but I got lost in the woods. Also, there are spoilers for the entire trilogy, so just go watch the series. It's on Netflix, it doesn't take that long, go watch it. With that said, please enjoy. Transformers. I got this Warpath figure a while ago. He's cool. Anyways, the Transformers War for Cybertron Trilogy is a collection of short shows on Netflix with a more unique retelling of the Transformers storyline, with this series being more darker and serious than most other shows in this franchise. But as I stated, this is a trilogy, and I'm going to be talking about each part in this video and expressing my opinions. And I have some opinions. With that being said, let's jump right into Siege is an intriguing start to the series. This series depicts the planet of Cybertron under the complete control of the Decepticons, with the Autobots being a simple scrappy rebellion trying to fight for a cause they believe in. While this is usually the case in most Transformers media, what this show really strives in is the characters. And this is no more apparent than with our big baddie Megatron. In this series, they made Megatron more than just a maniacal villain. They gave his character a lot of depth and intrigue, making him more of a political figure than a warmongering tyrant. Everything he does in this series is for the good of Cybertron, and you can see his remorse at humanity, especially when it comes to his interactions with Ultra Magnus. You can tell these two have so much history together. Massive props to the voice actor, by the way, he did a fantastic job. Now, with Megatron being such a compelling and interesting villain, it only makes sense for Optimus Prime to be an actual numbskull dumbass. Optimus is pretty much a complete idiot in this franchise, with a large portion of his plans hoping on blind luck and optimism, to the point where he puts the Autobots at risk of being completely annihilated. Alita 1 had the right to question him because he's a complete buffoon! But aside from that, I thought Jetfire's hesitance towards the Decepticon cause was really interesting. Bumblebee not starting out as an Autobot was interesting. Impactor's redemption arc was pleasant to see, but I'll talk about that later. Ultra Magnus is fucking dead. He's fucking dead.
Are you doing the Fortnite emo?
Earthrise barely had any Earth in it, so it's immediately garbage. I'm just kidding. But there really isn't much to say about Earthrise, to be honest. It was definitely the weaker, more bland part of the trilogy for me. The only thing worth mentioning was the introduction of the Quintessons, but even then, that's really not much to write home about because they're all dead. But if I'm being completely honest, though, that was the most fucked up part of the entire series. Like, Jesus Christ. Scorponok showed up. That's all I gotta say, he showed up! Oh, and also Skylinks. Skylinks is also pretty interesting, with him being a banished Autobot because of his desire for the Matrix, and you could tell that from his character he really wanted to redeem himself, and, you know, be an actual hero, but, you know, he's dead, so there's not really much he can do now. Okay, I'm done talking about Earthrise. Let's talk about Beast Wars! Kingdom starts off kinda shit. But if I'm being honest, if you can stomach through it, it gets a lot better. To start off my criticisms, I feel like a large portion of this part is basically just pandering to Beast Wars, which seems to be a continuing trend for this franchise. But once it stops hyper-focusing on the Beast Wars characters, it's not bad. But you want to know what is bad? The Beast Wars characters themselves. Now, I never watched or really grew up with the original Beast Wars, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think Optimus Primal was always such an asshole. Not to mention that Megatron voice is absolutely terrible. I'm not trying to bash the actual voice actor that played Megatron. I'm sure he had a hell of a time playing the character, but compared to what this was based on...
It is you, isn't it? Yes.
Ah, a treacherous, underhanded sneak attack. Oh, I like you, pussycat. Yes.
This is garbage. But much like the beginning of this series, if you can stomach through this, it gets a lot better. because the rest of this finale is action-packed. I thought that the ending was pretty conclusive and wrapped things up pretty well for the series, but they did tease some Unicron stuff at the end, so... Now, I wanted to talk about each individual part of the trilogy on their own, because there is one unifying factor in this trilogy that I absolutely adore, and I think was handled really well. And that's showcasing the allegiances of many bots in this series, and the gray area of the war. From the first goddamn episode of Siege, the show makes it very apparent that the war for these characters isn't so black and white, and more of a gray kind of shade. It makes it very clear through characters like Jetfire and Bumblebee that they may help the Decepticon or Autobot cause, but that doesn't mean they necessarily agree with everything that's going on. In fact, that was pretty much Jetfire's whole storyline. There was one scene in particular in Earthrise that I'll play now if I can actually find it. With the context of the story, and the fact that Megatron is now using his own subjects that blindly follow him as batteries for the Nemesis really speaks volumes that a lot of the Decepticons aren't just blind followers. While many of them still side with the Decepticon cause, they still know when to fight against it while not necessarily joining the other team. It shows that not all Decepticons are evil. This was also kind of done through Impactor's character. Impactor was a loyal Decepticon soldier that was crushed by a building and practically left for dead, until Ratchet found him and repaired him. And it's through Ratchet and some of the other Autobots that Impactor realizes that the Decepticon cause that he was once fighting for is practically a lost cause. And that makes his sacrifice to protect Ratchet during the final few episodes of Siege all that more impactful. All jokes aside, I loved Impactor's character and the way that they handled allegiances and like the gray area of the war and all that. I thought it was all handled incredibly. Now, before I wrap this video up, I want to mention that I bought this figure of Warpath and he wasn't even asked to show up in the entire series. What the fuck?
That's why my final rating for this is
A 5 out of 5 billion. It fucking